Here in the Northern Rockies, dark winter months are outlasted in basements, dens, and nooks where kindred souls gather together to share intel, swap fly patterns, and relive the memories from seasons past. This gathering spot, known locally as the February Room, is the inspiration for this podcast. No matter the season, the door is always open to those with a fly fishing story to tell. Brought to you by CD Fishing USA, the North American distributor for composite development fly rods and accessories. 40 years of Kiwi ingenuity and graphite technology, now available at cd-fishing.us or your local CD USA dealer. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And remember to go fishing. Here's your host, the Carnops, and this is the February Room.
The other day, Justin and I hopped into the truck and made our way to a section of a river that I had never fished, and for Justin, it's been more than a few years. The water was crystal clear, and we rigged up our rods for what ended up being an epic day on the water. I had made a note on my OnWater app to remember the fly we used and the honey hole that held a beautiful cutthroat that I'll never forget. Joining me to discuss more about this app is CEO, co-founder Scott Carver. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, happy to be here. Look forward to our conversation.
Well, and like we were just talking, we always start the podcast with a fishing story, and I already know you have a good one lined up, and I can't wait for you to share that with our listeners today.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and this particular story is really one of the sources of inspiration for creating this app. Couple years, well, probably more than a couple years ago now, I was fishing down on the Rio Grande River with my son, who at the time was 16 years old, and he had a couple of high school buddies with him, and I was, we were in two separate rafts. I was in a raft with my adult friends, and my son was with his other 16-year-olds, and they had never been on the river before. My son's a very good angler and a very good oarsman, but he'd never been on the Rio Grande, and we were doing about a 20-mile float that day, and we got our shuttles and organized our shuttles to be delivered, our cars to be delivered at a particular takeout. And somehow during the day we got separated, and so when I arrived at the boat ramp, my car was there with my trailer, and so I obviously knew that this was the place to get out, and I knew the river, so I knew it was the right boat ramp. But I also noticed that my son's car was not there with his trailer, and so I just automatically assumed that they were in front of us and had gotten out and had headed back to the campsite. So we got out, loaded up our raft, drove up to the campsite. When we got back there, some of the other people that we were fishing with were there, and I noticed that my son wasn't at the campsite. And by the way, this is now 10 o'clock at night. It was a long float that day. We did not get off the river till 9:30, and by the time we got loaded up and back to the campsite, it was probably closer to 10:30 at night, pitch black. And I get back to the campsite, and I said, "Have you guys seen my son?" And they said, "No, he hasn't shown up here." And of course, absolute panic started to set in, because about 8 miles below that takeout is a very, very dangerous diversion dam that if you went over, I mean, people have died in that many times. So I obviously I'm starting to panic, because he has no idea that diversion dam is down there, and it's pitch black. I mean, they would never even see it, even if they went down there. So
terrifying.
I get back in the car and I start driving down and with another friend, and we start pulling into certain spots where we could reach the river to see if we could spot them at all. We really didn't see anything. About a half hour later, probably it was after 11 o'clock at night, I get a phone call on my cell phone. Thank God there was cell service down there. And it was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway, and it was my son on the phone. And he said, "Hey, Dad, I think we missed the takeout. I don't know where we are. I pulled the boat over and walked up to a house, and and this guy answered the door in the middle of the night in his underwear, and let my son use the telephone to call me. And so we were able to, kind of locate where he was, and the gentleman was kind enough to let them pull the raft up onto his property, but he was actually about 3 miles
Oh my
above
gosh.
that diversion dam. He was that close. We were that close to losing him.
Did he know how close he was to?
Well, he did the next day.
Did you like drive down there and just be like, this is the reality of where you were?
Yeah. We didn't drive down there, but I pointed it out that because it's in a private property, so you can't actually drive down to the river where the diversion dam is.
Sure. Yeah.
But it was, as I said, it was one of those sources of inspiration for the app because, I said to myself, now with GPS technology the way it is today, and the way we've constructed our app, we should be able to prevent anything like that from ever happening, whether it be an angler, a rafter, a kayaker, what have you. The technology exists to be able to track your progress along a river. And if you've got the proper points identified on the river for either hazards or takeouts or access points, whatever, you should always be able to determine where you are relative to those points and be able to calculate how far it is to any of those points. And more importantly, to set a notification that tells you, hey, I'm within, 1,500 feet of this point.
Right.
And all those features now exist in our app. And, but it was a very, very scary moment for me, and one that was emotional because I also lost a close friend on the Arkansas River in Colorado going over a diversion dam. They actually drowned. So it's kind of a personal thing for me.
Without a doubt. Yeah. I think there's nothing more scary than becoming a parent, because it's like these little human beings are carrying your heart around, and it's just like they just carry your whole world. And it's one of those things that when something's scary and being lost and not knowing where your children are, especially knowing that there's something in their path that could end their lives, is, I can't imagine. Yeah. We all watch those shows, when there's something tragedy happens to someone's kid or a kid is lost, and you're like, those poor parents. Like, those are the first things that come out of my mouth. Like, those poor parents, like what they must be going through. And I think it's so wonderful that you took, as opposed to as a lesson, you're like, this is going to be something that I'm going to try and prevent for other users. And especially, I think it's safe to say that I think we're coming into a place where people like to do it yourself style adventures. They don't want to pay for it, but they're also novices. And the water can be very dangerous. I mean, water levels are changing constantly. Like you said, there can be debris. And so let's talk about OnWater app. Can you kind of give a little synopsis of exactly what this app is and what it does?
Yeah, it really is a comprehensive technology, and I like to refer to it as a technology platform because it's not just a phone app. Or a mobile app. There's a desktop version of it as well that is available to users. You get both when you purchase the app. But what we've done is created highly intelligent digital GPS-enabled maps that are specifically oriented to fly anglers, and now we're moving into the paddle sports area, but primarily for fly anglers. And then what we've done is we've surrounded these intelligent navigation maps with all of the information that a fly angler would want or would seek in exploring a place to fish or planning a day or on the water or even a destination trip. So when you think about, going out on the river for the day, you want to know where the fly shops are, what are the fishing reports, what are the flows, what are the weather, where are the access points? Am I going to be, where are public property versus private property? Are there little hidden public property gems that aren't necessarily on those paper maps that you see? Shuttle services, if you're floating, stream access laws, regulations, if you're planning a destination trip, lodges, outfitters, all of that information. We have a team of curators who they do all of that research, and they actually apply all of those resources and all of that information to these digital maps, so that when you're out on the water, you actually can track all of that. And as I said, and I think you mentioned at the very beginning, being able to use the tool is almost like a personal journal, and be able to mark your secret little spots that are only secret to you, and be able to create notes, be able to take photographs and organize them by by river or by species, so that you can get at them quickly, rather than fumbling through your thousands and thousands of photographs to find your favorite fish picture. So
without a doubt.
I mean, how many times have we been standing in a party and go, "Oh, I want to show you this fish picture," and 5 minutes later you can't find it and everybody's left,
And you're like seriously just scrolling there, and you're like, what year was it? And then you're like, you type in like places, and that can be a complete mess. And I also just like to journal, to think of this time last year, we were, using our doing some hopper fishing, and it was this place. And even as we were driving back from this this special river, we were passing some really cool sections that I hadn't fished before. So as we were driving, I was actually putting little points on there to future adventures, which is really cool, because how many times do you drive past a bridge and you're like, that looks kind of cool, I want to go fishing there, but then it's like out of sight, out of mind, and then you're like, where exactly was that? So that was kind of I thought that was a really nice feature, where I was like, we're just passing, and Justin's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I think I want to go fishing there, next week with the girls.
Yeah, well, we were in your neck of the woods in Missoula, and it was May at the Orvis Guide Rendezvous, and I had never fished. I had never fished the Bitterroot before, and so I did not, and we have a very, very detailed, very robust map of the Bitterroot, and one of my guides who works for me at the Madison Valley Ranch, he also works for us here at OnWater, is really familiar with the Bitterroot. So I asked him, I said, Josh, tell me where I should fish. I want to spend a day. And so we pulled the app out, and we put, he gave me 3 spots that I should go fish. And so I put those on my app. So I was the only one who could see them. We're very sensitive to.
Still, it's like it's almost like your personal identity. It's like your social security card. You're like, do I want you to see this?
All of us fly anglers, we're very secretive about our spots, which, it's so understandable. I mean,
right.
It's hard to say that there's a lot of secret spots left anymore, but we are, and we want to protect those, and we're sensitive to that, and we try to assure our subscribers and our users that those things that they place on their phone that are unique and personal to them stay there. They're not shared unless they want to share.
Right.
And so Josh shared with me those 3 spots. And so, I drove out to the Bitterroot. I clicked on one of them. It gave me the directions right to that spot. I went there, and sure enough, there was that spot that he told me about. And And, I had a great day, and then I drove up and I could tell how far of a drive it was to the next one. And it was, 8 miles or whatever. And so I spent the day fishing those 3 spots, and it was all because it was in that mobile device and always available to me. And I could easily find them rather than trying to figure out what dirt road I was going to have to go down to get there.
Well, and also it's when you're going to these new places and you can share these locations with your loved ones, because some of my biggest fear when Justin's going fishing, and we kind of have this like rule that like either one of us, like this is the time, the latest I could possibly be home. And then after that, you're like, okay, I want to have a pinpoint to where you are, because you are going off grid. So it's really hard to, but if you had this information, you could tell like the local authorities, like, do you mind just driving down there and just making sure their car is there, instead of like, well, I kind of went fishing on this river and it's like this robust river. You're like, well, I don't know what section. So I think by having this app also creates a safer environment. And also I think it makes you a good conservationist too, because you're following the rules as well as knowing what's around you. And that's really important because I think as we have more people getting into the sport, which is so wonderful and so beautiful, we still have to protect the waters that we love. And I think that's what I like about OnWater app, is that your message is also that same feeling, that because we love these waters, we also have to protect them. And this is also a way of doing that.
Yeah, it's really probably our primary core value as an organization is the protection of our resources and protection of our waters, and advocating good etiquette. We're advocates for our waters and our environment. We partner with a ton of conservation groups as well as underserved communities. And it's just really gratifying to be involved with those, whether it be Trout Unlimited, American Rivers, but we're also involved in Project Healing Waters and the Trout Unlimited groups, and Casting for Recovery, and there's just a lot of opportunity for those organizations to connect with their community through a medium that the whole world is using now, and it's that mobile device, right? I mean, everybody's on their mobile device all the time. Now, we view fly fishing as a way to escape that and get out of it, and we encourage that. We only want people to use that when either they're planning or when they're out on the river and they need to check if they're in, the right place or how far it is or what have you. But being able to provide information to people about conservation activities, conservation groups, fundraisers, whatever, even providing educational content around whether it be the proper handling of fish or river stewardship or what have you. Being able to do that through the mobile device is the medium of choice nowadays. And that's what we are. That's where we live.
I mean, I think that's so wonderful because, also some of your revenue goes towards conservation.
Absolutely. Yeah. We, all of those conservation groups that I mentioned to you, we share revenue for every subscription that's purchased. We share revenue back to those organizations. And quite frankly, some of the organizations, some of our underserved community, we provide their membership free subscriptions.
Amazing.
Because we feel it's important to advocate that they get out on the river and enjoy the outdoors, even though they may be disadvantaged in some way.
Well, there's something that's healing about these waters. That's why it's becoming a really popular sport. And also, with this younger generation, I think the reason why people are craving that is because we're in this world that just is, you're constantly trying to keep up, and there isn't really much you can do on the water other than fish and change your bug. And there are just so many applications with that in life. And I think that's just so beautiful. And you're in Ennis, Montana, which is like beautiful place to have this. I love Ennis. It's so gorgeous.
I like to think of it as the epicenter of fly fishing, particularly in Southwest Montana.
And the people, because we were just talking, I had met one of your co-workers, Shalon. Am I saying her name right?
Yeah, Shalon Hastings. Yes.
Yes, she is amazing, and just it was such a welcoming environment. Even, it's funny because we had one of the locals there was like trying to give us some details of where to go fishing. He's like, "I'm going to tell you a good spot to go fishing," and it was just all word of mouth. Like he had no app. We were trying to like, where exactly are you talking? And he's like, if you go take 5 steps and then take a left, there's the honey hole. I mean, that was the directions. And so we went out, and I'm not joking. Cause the river is like it'll have like some really deep holes. All of a sudden you're just like plunk. And sure enough, I was like walking and took 3 steps to the left and just like plunk right into the river. Waders were all wet. And I was like, yeah, I don't think those directions helped me out too much. And the next day it was really nice. I think he really wanted us to experience this awesome day on the river with his intel. And, he was like, how was the fishing? Did you find my honey hole? And we're like, yeah, maybe. I might have might have ruined the honey hole. I'm not really sure. But back to Shalon, she's amazing. And we were talking about how your staff you have everybody loves the water. They're either guides, they have something to do with the fishing industry. So you guys have curated a lot of experience behind the app.
Yeah. And that's really, I think that's one of our key differentiators is, we have 18 full-time employees, and every single one of them, with maybe one exception, I can say every single one of them is a passionate fly angler. But more importantly, every one of them comes from the fly angling community. We have fly shop owners. I'm a lodge owner, and I have 14 guides who work for me. We have outfitters, we have guides, we have authors, we have teachers. It's just an incredible group of just really fishy people. I mean, it's
I can only imagine what the holiday party looks like.
Yeah, well, I can tell you where the holiday party, where everybody wants it to be. They all want to go down to Belize and permit fish.
Oh my gosh, is that happening? Is that happening, Scott? Are you going to make that Christmas list? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Maybe someday. Right now, we're focused on. We're 100% focused on building a great product. We're still very, very early in this game. And we're expanding our footprint across the country in terms of the waters that we have available to our subscribers. And, we're really trying to create some brand identity across the country and bring awareness to our sport and really promote the conservation of our sport. So we're heads down, working hard, and if it all works out, we'll go permit fishing in Belize.
They're all going to be listening to this podcast like, hey guys, did you hear this? Did you listen to it? Scott said we're going to Belize. I've gotten you into some trouble.
Yeah, that's okay. There wouldn't be a better group for me to spend that kind of time with. We really enjoy each other. We've made it, a point to have fun along this journey. We're obviously running a business, but if you're not having fun, it's not worth it. I retired from my real job a couple of years ago, and this is my, I'm at this point in my life, I want to have fun in these types of endeavors.
Well, I think that's so wonderful. And I mean, I think when you have a group of team that you have, I think it becomes really fun in the office. And I mean, when you get to say, I have to go fishing here for some work related, I think you've kind of made it in the job description.
Yeah. Well, the problem, the biggest problem we have is people go, well, I can't make the meeting on Thursday because I'm going to be fishing.
And you're like, what do you mean? You're like, well, it's for research. It's for research.
Yeah. It's R&D.
I love it. So Scott, like, what is your future and vision for OnWater app? Like, where do you want to see this app in the future?
Yeah, great question. Because we do have a fairly broad vision for where we want to take this. You know, right now, our primary focus, you know, we really launched to the public this last December, and the orientation has been primarily around the individual angler. However, our longer term vision is to really have it evolve into an industry platform that all stakeholders could derive value from. So whether it be product manufacturers, whether it be guides and outfitters, lodges, you know, podcasters, authors, you know, whatever. You know, we believe that this can be a medium to connect our community.
Absolutely.
And every stakeholder should be able to derive some level of value from this platform. Right now, we've got a whole business development team that is focused on, getting the app into fly shops as a, you know, product sales into fly shops, because, you know, when people walk into fly shops, the first question out of their mouth is, you know, where should we fish?
Right.
And, you know, so instead of pulling the paper map out on the desk and scribbling and, you know, going through the experience like you just described earlier, boom, right here, this is what you do. And it can be very precise. So we think that the industry can derive value. We're about to announce a partnership with Umpqua that will be very interesting. And then beyond that, as I mentioned previously, there is a whole nother market vertical that we intend to move into, and that is the paddle sports community.
Yeah.
Adventure sport, whitewater, whether it be whitewater rafting or just rafting, kayaking. You know, we have all these rivers curated. And by the way, as we curate these rivers, we curate all of the rapids, and we have descriptions of all the rapids, how to run them, you know, and so forth. So, you know, we see a very significant opportunity in the whitewater, or I should say adventure paddle sports segment. You know, there's 39 million paddle sports enthusiasts out there. So we think it's a fairly significant market that we could address, and fully intend to do so.
Well, and it's also another very dangerous sport. So the safer that you can be prepared, you know, the better, the more fun you will have. That's just not a sport for me. That stuff terrifies me. I don't want to do flips under the water with my kayak. I mean, I see we have Brennan's Wave up here, and I'm always watching. I'm watching everyone do their, you know, kayakers and surfers, and I'm like, this does not seem like the sport for me. I think I'm much better in a boat casting, and but I mean, I see the reason why that is so important. And you know, I loved actually what you said about community, like creating this a community, because I think with as many outfitters and guides on the river, this would be a great resource for communication to make sure, hey, maybe don't put 10 boats on the Blackfoot tomorrow at the same time. Like, you know, I think this is such a great a community. I love that saying, because in the long run, we're all a community in the fly fishing industry. I mean, we're following people in the fly fishing industry because we want to know more about their adventures. And so I think to keep that door open for, especially here in Missoula, where it's starting to get a little bit busier, I think we need to, you can't do it how it used to be. Like, oh, I'm not going to share this information anymore. It's like, well, maybe we should start talking about it. Like, how many people are you putting on the river these days? Like, we need to protect our resource too.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, as you're probably keenly aware of some of the challenges we have down here on the Madison.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just when I was there, I went to the Madison twice this year, which is kind of strange. But we went with my girlfriends and we went to a fly shop, and he's like, you need to go there early in the morning. Probably just did exactly. And this was in, I think it was June. Mm-hmm. Anyways, we went early and it was still so crowded. I was amazed. I was like, well, I think every fly shop is telling everyone to come here early.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing is, a couple of years ago, we said, all right, we got to get on the river right at daybreak.
Yeah.
Particularly during the salmon fly hatches, these big hatches. And of course, now everybody knows that you have to do that. And so everybody's there. I don't think anybody gets on at 9 o'clock anymore.
Yeah, no. I mean, the early bird gets the early worm. Is that how it goes? I'm so bad at sayings. Justin's going to kill me when he always listens to these. He's like, another good one, Lauren. I'm like, yep.
The early bird gets the early worm.
There you go. See, this is why I need CEOs on my podcast to just correct me when I'm not saying the right. But yeah, I think it's interesting too, because I think as anglers, we all have these dreams and visions. I mean, don't you always have these dreamers? Like, someone should do something like this. And I remember Justin and I specifically one day in the water even said, this was years ago, someone needs to come up with this app. And I think it's just so wonderful that you have taken the initiative to make it happen, because it's a lot of work. I mean, you have this huge team, you have and it's a big project to do. And I just love it that it's coming. What's one of your favorite features other than the one that's making sure where boat ramps are? We know why that one's the most important one, but what's one of your favorite features?
I'll tell you, there's probably two that I use all the time. As I said, spending most of my primary home is in Colorado. And in Colorado, stream access and private property laws are very different than they are here in Montana. In Colorado, the landowners own the stream bed, so you can't go into it. You can't go into a stream, wade into a stream like you can here in Montana, and just go up and down willy nilly. It's very, very regulated, and so I use the property data all the time. And what's really cool is that we have the property data for every property parcel in the entire United States. And we know who owns it. And so, rather than just publish, this is BLM land or U.S. Forest Service land, we have all of the local government data, whether it be a local sanitation district, whether it be a school district that might be along the river. I mean, there are all sorts of little hidden public property gems across these states that have these types of property laws. And I use that all the time. I find spots that nobody knows about because I can look on that app and see that, that's the so-and-so sanitation district property. That's a local government entity. Yeah, it's public. So I use that a lot. And then the other thing that I do is I use the distance calculator all the time. So, we float a lot out west on rivers. And so I like to try to gauge my day. And so I always like to try to figure out how far it is to the boat ramp where we're going to get out. So do I need to speed up? Can I slow down and do some more wade fishing? it's really valuable. I use it constantly. You know, I check and say, okay, we've got, you know, on a 12-mile float, we've got, you know, 5 miles to go, and, you know, we're supposed to be off the river in an hour and a half. I gotta start paddling forward. No more wade fishing, guys. Let's go.
That sounds like my husband. I'm always like, just one more cast. The other day, I was like, you need to go. He's like, we're going to be late picking up our kids. I was like, no, we're not. And sure enough, we were 5 minutes late. They're like at the parking lot. We're just like rolling in. I'm like, sorry. Justin's like, I told you that one cast was going to ruin it for everybody. I was like, I guess so. I lost the fish. So it like everything just hurt, right? Like that car ride was so quiet. It was like, not going to talk to you. Yeah, we've all been there, right? Just one more cast. Just one more cast. It never is. Well, especially when the fishing is hot and it's beautiful out. You're like, I do not want to leave this.
Right.
I don't want to leave the water.
You know, my wife is probably similar, and she always, early in our marriage, she would ask, well, so what time are you going to be back? And I would try to come up with some answer, and I would always disappoint her. I would always come back a hell of a lot later than I ever thought I would. But it's that thing, you know, you're out there, it's good. You don't want to come home. The drive's a little longer than you anticipated. And so now she's at the point she never even asked me anymore.
Oh, see, you've made it. You've made it. As long as you're home before the next morning, before you're there, or else we're going to have that
lifelong training process.
We don't want to hear that. What is that podcast? National Park Murders. We don't want the CEO founder. Oh gosh, that one terrifies me. I can only listen to like 2 podcast episodes, or else I'm like, then as I'm fishing, I'm like, this would be a great podcast episode. Me fishing on the water. And maybe they find me. We have this whole thing where they find me because of my OnWater app. You know, I told the Ennis guy after telling his fishing hole. Oh, anyways. So Scott, let's give our listeners, how do they access this app? How do they download it? What's the best way?
You know, the best way is you can go to onwaterapp.com and you can sign up online, or you can get it directly on the App Store or the Google Play Store and download it that way.
Awesome.
So it's very easy. For hopefully most of your listeners, they'll see it in a fly shop near them sometime soon, and each fly shop has a little QR code that you can scan and you download it right there. So pretty easy. We're easy to find. onwaterapp.com. And
then also on social media, you guys are on Instagram.
Oh yeah, Instagram, Facebook. Yes.
Are you on TikTok? Are you TikToking?
Oh, I don't think we are. To be honest with you.
Well, it's about time. I'm
just joking.
I'm joking. I just like to give people a hard time because I feel like I've been on TikTok now for just a year. I'm like, so I'm kind of a big deal on TikTok. I'm not. I'm not at all.
We've got a pretty good group of people that are managing the social media, and I remember asking them the other day if we were on TikTok, and I think the answer was we haven't done it yet, but we're looking at it.
That is so funny. I mean, I don't know. I also feel like there's so much things that you can keep up with before you just are like, you know what, maybe I just need to stick to the rivers and the lakes that I'm used to.
You know, there's nothing like word of mouth advertising, and the good news is that, you know, our subscribers, the feedback that we're getting has just been that it's been great. And so a lot of our growth has been somewhat organic. Obviously, we're doing a lot of social media and we're doing some advertising, which every business has to do at this stage. But the real gratifying thing is seeing the organic growth through word of mouth.
Well, and I love it. I mean, I love your guys' app. I also love the logo with the blue and the little fly, the bug on there. I just
Yeah,
think it's just it's clean and you guys are doing so great. And I think if there's anything we can do as anglers is to be better prepared, safer, and also knowing your surroundings, know what fish you're targeting, and also the rules and regulations. Be safe. Like don't go on people's private property, the more happier our neighbors are, the more access we have. And it's just try and be considerate all around on your safety and everything.
that's right. But, as we like to say, we not allow, but we make anglers more confident on their days on the river.
It's so important. There's nothing worse than not feeling confident and also feeling lost. I
Yeah.
can't stand it's the most nerve-wracking. I feel like you're just kind of walking and you're like, do I know where I'm going? Do I know how to get back to my car? And yeah, the better that we can be prepared, the safer we can all be on the water because water
And
can
for,
be
and for new anglers, women, disadvantaged groups, they get intimidated to ask for directions or ask the questions that they need to ask. We had an influencer group in May where we had 15 people that from all walks of our industry, and many of them were very significant influencers in our industry, and many of them were women. And what we heard consistently, and we also had a couple were people of color, and what we heard consistently from them is they felt intimidated to walk into a fly shop and ask the questions that they needed to ask to have a confident day on the river. Sometimes they were outright ignored because of who they were.
Mhm.
And maybe you've felt that when you walk into places. But we heard that consistently. And so, we feel like if we could arm people with the information that they're looking for, have it be real time, have it be with them throughout their day or throughout their experience, that we're serving a positive, we're contributing to a positive experience.
Go to thefebruaryroom.com where you can access a complete library of our podcast and read more about our guests, their fishing stories, and favorite fly patterns. We're always looking for exceptional fly fishing yarns, and if you have one to spin, shoot us an email at info@thefebruaryroom.com. The February Room is always free, but if you feel like throwing a nickel in the pond, we appreciate any additional listener support. For companies and individuals interested in sponsorship opportunities, please contact us for our media kit. Thanks for stopping by the February Room, and we'll see you down here next week.